Shadowlands definitely overreached quite a bit, and we started getting into the core of the universe itself, and many people are thinking, if we went so far, what else is possible afterwards? What type of an expansion can really follow Shadowlands? Is it possible to really go any further? Luckily, Warcraft lore is quite massive, so there are many potential options, and Blizzard planted plenty of seeds over the years that they can further utilize to expand the game. So here are 10 possible future expansions. If you're looking for a great tower defense strategy RPG game for your mobile device, Ace Defender might just be the game for you. Uphold the balance between good and evil in the world with a traditional RPG storyline with 40 chapters, nearly 2,000 levels, and a great mixture of turn-based RPG battles and tower defense modes. You can explore dungeons and regions, engage in trials, as well as join in on the PvP with leaderboards and arenas. Ace Defender has 5 hero factions with very deep hero background stories, 48 heroes at launch with a new one coming out every 2 weeks, allowing you to level up, combine, and create a very powerful lineup for every game mode of your choice. Use my link in the description and receive special launch rewards when you reach level 10. Number 10. Birth of Azeroth. If we accept the lore that Azeroth is indeed a Titan world soul, then this might be one of the possibly most interesting expansions out there. Chronicle told us that Azeroth is actually a Titan, the most powerful one, ready to be born, having suffered many wounds and invasions over the years, over the eons. However, as we had defeated Sargeras and are currently fighting other threats to the world soul, it might be time for Azeroth to finally awaken. Really, it has been a nascent Titan, at least in theory, for thousands and thousands of years, and the Titans did leave facilities for its awakening. Ultimately though, no one knows what exactly would happen. Would the entire planet just transform into a Titan? Would all the inhabitants infuse it, or would it just come out of it, leaving the planet as is, as the shell, possibly ultimately taking the Sword of Sargeras? This could be a perfect way to revamp all the zones and update them, akin to what Cataclysm had done these many years ago. However, with this new first one lore, despite really interesting, I'm not sure how much this would be likely, as apparently the Titans have been lying about many things, so I wouldn't be surprised if Azeroth is not even a Titan in the end. Number 9. Alliance vs Horde. The reality is that Battle for Azeroth never really ended. We had reached an armistice, but there really wasn't a peace deal, like an actual peace deal. There are still many areas of Azeroth that are contested, from Gilneas to Undercity, and it's not like the factions really buried their war hatchets. It's like very temporary peace. Well, I'm not personally sure how interesting it would be, as we just had a huge faction war. Ultimately, it would be cool to return to something more worldly and less cosmological, where we are fighting the creators of the universe themselves. The theme of the expansion could be the reclamation of Lordran, as that has been an alliance goal since forever, and Tyrellian is now the leader of the faction, and as you may know, he was born as Lordran ability. So without a doubt, a new faction conflict is definitely on the table. It only depends on whether Blizzard really wants to pull this card or not. Number 8. Other Side of Azeroth. This has been one of the longest standing theories, I'd say, since even Classic. There was always the mysterious other side of Azeroth, where the sailors went the other way to reach the continents, and they had mysteriously just disappeared. However, overall, this has always been just a footnote in the lore, barely ever really mentioned. As the expansion progressed, we reached the other continents. Some were hidden by mists, some we just didn't reach until Battle for Azeroth, but we did eventually start exploring the various Isles of Azeroth. However, what if instead of isles or mid-sized continent like Pandaria, we run into a major-sized continent akin to Kalimdor or the Eastern Kingdoms on the other side? Despite this being half proven, half disproven, Blizzard could definitely make it happen in various ways if they really want to. Either there could be a Titan mechanism that hid this, another type of a mist, maybe even something First One related. We could explore an entire continent of Azeroth, find new races, learn more about our planet, and most importantly, we can finally return from the cosmological god battles to once again sailing on Azeroth, fighting and just being regular folk, despite still having big threats in the background. Number 7. Time travel. This is one of those ideas that is always on the table, but in my opinion it should really only be used as the absolutely last resort. As we had learned with Worlds of Draenor, there are pretty much countless timelines, alternate timelines and whatnot, and honestly, I don't think even Blizzard knows what is up with this. However, in this case, I'd say an alternate Azeroth would actually be an interesting expansion, maybe the First War or any other major event in Azeroth's history. Most interestingly, the time the Titans invaded Azeroth and defeated the Black Empire, so we could fight side by side with the Titan Forged, facing off and imprisoning the Old Gods and the Elemental Lords, which could lead into a future Void invasion. As I mentioned, these time travel expansions are playing with fire, no doubt, but if they pick a good setting and make a good expansion, it can 100% work. Number 6, Sargeras' Return. I'm not sure how much of this is really an entire expansion concept, but we do know that Sargeras was recently imprisoned, not dead, and that his gigantic, and gigantic is putting it lightly, sword is still stuck in Azeroth. Sargeras' return could either be an entire expansion concept, or it could tie in with something else where Sargeras could play a major role. Seeing how crazy powerful he is, it is entirely possible that Illidan and the Titans wouldn't be able to hold him for long, especially if the Jailer undoes the entire mechanism, binding the universe in place. So the big guy, the real and the true villain of the Warcraft universe, might just be returning back for his sword to finish what he had started. Seeing as the Legion failed, he may be forming a new army, this time not a demonic one, but possibly recruiting from the other various cosmological forces, so we could have a Void Legion, a Void Crusade. Number 5, Draenor again. Can't say the most exciting idea ever, as this would be the 3rd time we would visit Draenor, but on this occasion, they could really make it just totally different. As far as we know, alternate Draenor when we had left was conquered by the forces of the light, and at this point it is literally just a light stronghold with Yrel leading the entire planet. The world could either be an expansion in itself, or it could be a part of a light expansion concept, and I think they can definitely make it quite interesting. You have the original Draenor, however, instead of it becoming Outland because of fell magic, this time it would become Light Draenor, and the entire planet could look unlike anything we had ever seen before. The Draenor that we're all familiar with, just with Draenei Naru architecture and just gigantic light beacons everywhere. Not sure how much they would be willing to risk by making Draenor an entire expansion again, but if done right, it could definitely be quite interesting. Number 4, First Ones. This is hard to really speculate on because we don't really know who these First Ones are, and we are still kind of figuring out the clues within the Shadowlands. However, if they're only half as important as we believe, an expansion about them is entirely likely, maybe really the most possible on this list. As far as we know, they are the most powerful cosmological forces, the architects of the universe, and they have built cities just within Shadowlands, so I definitely wouldn't be surprised if their cities exist in other far reaches of our cosmos. An expansion could easily be based on us reaching a First One planet, which could be related to this sepulcher, and we could either be fighting them or fighting other people that are trying to claim the First One stuff for themselves, such as the Jailer and the Forces of Death. While hard to really go in detail as we know so little about them, this could be a really cool expansion. Number 3, Light Invasion. This is currently one of the most popular theories and potentially the most interesting one as well. The long-time good guys becoming the bad guys, or things becoming a lot more grey than they already are. This really is nothing new. For years, Blizzard has been diluting the benevolence of the light, and we really started realizing a few years ago that damn, these Naru guys are not exactly saints. For example, they imprison people that don't follow their purpose, they use torture, they essentially force people to become their followers, so while they may not be as openly chaotic as the Void for example, they really aren't exactly complete opposite to them. Now, two big hints are really making this possible. First, that Yrel took over alternate Draenor and forced everyone to become a servant of the light, and second, that Terrellian, one of the main light people, is currently leading the dominant faction, the Alliance. Just with these two elements alone, Blizzard could make an entire light expansion. Either an invasion could happen, the light could try to claim Azeroth for itself, or we could have sort of a light crusade, similar to what Yrel did to Draenor. In this case, we could have Terrellian forcing light upon us and even calling down Yrel to return the old favor. So the fabled Dark Portal could once again open, this time as the Light Portal. Number 2. Underworld. Many are not aware, but Azeroth actually has a really prominent underworld, and just this by itself could prove as great material for a really interesting and unique expansion. First, we have hidden Titan facilities, and I'm guessing we didn't even discover all of them. We have ancient remnants of the Black Empire and their minion cities, such as Azil and Rube. Then, most interesting one is the actual famous goblin city of Undermine that we never actually explored. The city was said to have been heavily damaged by the volcano back in Cataclysm, but I would be surprised if it was just completely abandoned by this point. Us going back to Undermine could prove really interesting, sort of like a Lord of the Rings abandoned dwarven city. On top of that, we also have Gnomeregan, which was never fully fixed, so the underworld stuff is just everywhere. Then this setting could evolve into a bigger threat, which is the old gods, like they overran these underworld cities, Void Lords, and of course the World Soul could be related to this, which is somewhere in the core of the planet. Through the underworld, we might reach one of these cosmological forces that could really make something out of this expansion. Number 1. Void Invasion. The next expansion that has been hinted at for, I'd say, about a decade now. Really, this has always been the most likely next expansion, yet it never really happens. This even was the dominant theory when the first volume of Chronicle was released and we learned about the Void Lords and just how powerful they are. However, despite all the changes, this still is really potent and incredibly likely future expansion. Just think about it, we never really saw the Void Lords. We did manage to stop a new Black Empire, but obviously the Void is still going really strong. There has been a lot of expansion in the story when it comes to the Void/Light and their connection within our universe, with some good and bad sides. We had some races join the Void, and there are even Void hints and whispers within the Shadowlands itself. Now, depending on how Shadowlands unravels in this entire first one mystery, it is entirely possible that the ground could be set up for a future Void invasion of Azeroth. And this time, not just the old gods breaking free from their ancient Titan prisons, but the Void Lords actually manifesting themselves and trying to conquer our planet in the exact same manner as all the horrifying stories from other planets describe. Thank you for watching. Check out 10 crazy fan theories that were actually debunked by clicking on the screen, and also check out Donut's Academy for videos on real world history and science. See you next time.